Hey folks, it's Ray with Taste Radio, and right now I'm honored to be sitting down with John Fieldly, who is the chairman and CEO of Celsius. John, so great to see you.
Ray, glad to be here again. It's awesome. Great to see you as well.
Again, indeed. Although the last time we spoke, which was in early 2021, each of us had been in different places or different studios. Actually, neither of us were in a studio. I was at home and in my office, which isn't really an office. It's actually a sunroom that I used as an office for some time. And you were looking for some open conference room space in your office. And I recall you taking your laptop and kind of going around the place trying to find something that was quiet and had decent lighting. And now you do have a pretty fantastic backdrop there. You've got, as you mentioned, great lighting. You've got your nice screen behind you. You've got logos all over the place. You're even drinking a Celsius, which is fantastic.
Right on. Now it's still hard to find a conference room around the office these days, but with all the staff we've hired and we continue to hire, but the team worked out here. We got a great little setup to do videos and interviews, and even got lights shining down. So it's kind of come a long way here.
Yeah, and you've also got a great dry cleaner, or at least an iron. Your shirt is just not a wrinkle in sight.
Awesome.
How many people working for the company now?
Yeah, we're up to just over 300 full time, and
Wow.
we just graduated 170 college universities students that will be going to campus or on campus right now, heading off on our CNU college activation program that we have. So yeah, we're over 300. It's a lot of, I would say we're, over the last 6 months, we've probably hired about 65 employees as well. So it's exciting. It's an exciting time. The brand's doing extremely well. We got great innovation, working hard, and it's all coming together.
Yeah. I recall in our last conversation for Taste Radio that you said you had an open door policy and you pretty much knew everyone in the company. Now, you didn't have 300 employees at the time, but anyone that wanted to walk in and just chat with you, even for, a few minutes, could do that from the interns on up. Is that still the case?
Absolutely. Always have an open door policy, spend time in different departments. I'm hands-on. I've got to learn everyone's name, especially a lot of the new folks that joined on. It's a little bit disturbing. I don't know everyone's name, but it's something to work on, and it's definitely one of my goals.
It happens. It happens, especially when you're bringing in new people all the time. Now, I saw you last in person, I think it was in June, here in Boston at a conference that was hosted by Stifel, which is a global investment bank and financial services company. You presented at that conference, I believe, right?
Yeah, we did. We did. That was that was a great event. We were just actually up in Boston last 2 days at Barclays Consumer Investor Conference as well, and it was a quick in and out, but it was great. We got to present right after James Quincy.
Oh, wow.
On, so that was pretty impressive to be going right after Coca-Cola and the presentation set. So pretty honored to do that. That was great.
Any pointers, any learnings, lessons you could take from his presentation style?
Yeah, I mean, he's dynamite. Does a great job, and you got to learn something new every day. He's got a great presentation, great way he talks to the audience, and it's definitely got to learn upon that. Takes practice.
I hope the folks at Stifel and Barclays enjoyed your presentation, given that they pretty closely monitor what you guys are doing at Celsius.
They are watching every step very closely, but it was good. They're enjoying, and I think you talk to a lot of investors and you talk to a lot of people on Wall Street, and they're just really excited to see what Celsius has done, what we've accomplished. There hasn't been a number 3 brand in the last decade that's exceeded a 10 share in the energy category. And it looks like we're on that trajectory. Hopefully in the next next few data polls, or at least by the end of the year, we'll be able to get there. So, that's an amazing accomplishment, for the teams out there and for the brand. And it just shows you we're doing something very unique in the category when you see the Celsius portfolio and kind of how energy is evolving.
Yeah. And I want to talk about how you do create something as unique as you have and do it as quickly as you have. Before we get to that, I do want to bring up one other point. And it was a funny note that I got from one of your colleagues, or he had told me that, let me try that again, 3, 2. Yeah, absolutely. And I do want to get into the nuts and bolts of, building a unique company and how you do it as quickly as you have. I do want to mention that one of your colleagues at that Stifel event had told me something kind of funny about you. Even though you're the chairman and CEO of a multi-billion-dollar company, when it comes to your travel habits, you're pretty frugal. You fly inexpensively, is what he told me.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'll go tit for tat on any T&E expense report in the company. I think you got to lead by example, and it's that is what it is. I work for shareholders. I'm not a founder. I'm an operator, and we're here to run the best efficient company in the world, and that's I think and to drive shareholder return. I mean, that's what it's all about at the end of the day, and being frugal is really important. It's not only in travel; it's everything we do, right? How do we be more efficient? Operations, sales, marketing, finance, HR, everything we do. So you got to have that mindset. And I think that starts from the top and that trickles down, right? And, you start, some people don't think that every dollar is coming out of their pocket. And that's, this is our company. And you really got to have that mindset, I think is really important. And I think that's important how you also build culture, respect, gains respect. And, that's, it is what it is.
Well, it's makes a lot of sense, and I think if, say, that intern sees the CEO flying private, $10,000 meals, things like that. I'm not saying $10,000 meals, but you know what I'm saying. Just really living extravagantly and lavishly. Perhaps they start to think, oh, I can start to expense this or expense that, and do it in a way that isn't in line with your goals for the company, which include being profitable, something that you achieved in 2020. We spoke about that, hitting those big milestones, 100 million in revenue, being profitable. But since that time, you have grown, or Celsius has grown by, I don't know what factor. I think it's over 10, 12 times that. A $1 billion company, at least in terms of revenue, and again, maintain that profitability. What has been your guiding light in that time? How have you considered, growing, but growing at such a fast rate and doing it intelligently, doing it in line with those goals?
I mean, it comes to discipline. I mean, that really does. And I think that we pride ourselves on being efficient, driving profitable growth, and reinvesting in the business in the right way, in the right manner. And I think if you look at a lot of public companies and private companies out there, it's a lot of them, do 100 million in revenue and lose money doing it, right? So that's being cognizant. It's in the DNA. I used to be the CFO of the company, it's extremely important. You got to continue to invest where you're seeing returns. You got to continue, even if you're seeing returns, you got to second guess yourself, right? And reevaluate your initiatives, reevaluate your strategies. I think one thing, we're hyper paranoid here at Celsius, which I think is important. And yeah, we did something great and it worked, but did it really work the way we wanted it to work? And how do we make it work better? Every investment we make, we have financial statements that have to back it up, and playbooks. And that's where, when you invest $1, you need to get a certain return on that dollar. And I think you got to have that mindset when you look at, returns and on marketing spend. And, you could spend money really quickly in consumer products. I think we all know that it can go extremely quickly. So, if you set goals and expectations, did you achieve those goals? Did you exceed those goals? Why? And do we want to make another bet? Right. I think when you look at investments in all parts of the business, and you're really looking at a roulette table, right? And you're trying to, there's strategies on roulette on how do you place your right bet? How do you bet so you have a better edge against the house, even though at the end of the day, probably roulette doesn't have the best odds at all against the house. And I mean, consumer products is really that way as well. When you think about that, it's very difficult to get consumers to pick up a product, to try a product, and then purchase it again. I mean, it's very, very difficult. And you're up against the house. And a lot of times, these large, more established brands have the house advantage, and you're trying to come up against that. And so just reevaluating your playbook, reevaluating your bets, really having the opportunity, the initiative to double down, when the numbers are hot and they're in your favor, and trying to have that mindset always on making sure you're trying to make calculated bets versus on kind of like making bets from the gut, or, investing in, a lot of times, individuals, rightfully so, it's just human instinct, will kind of want to do something that's maybe comfortable to them or something they've experienced in the past. And a lot of times when you second guess yourself or you second guess the team, it allows that critical thinking to step in and to make sure it's the right move for the brand, right move at the time, right move for the retailer and the consumer.
You use the term hyper paranoid, and I hear from a lot of entrepreneurs and founders that it's important to be cognizant of your competition and cognizant of, what could be around the corner. On the flip side of the coin, ambition is such an important part of building a strong and healthy and scalable company. But I wonder which is more important, or at least which, I guess, takes precedent when it comes to how you've gotten to where you are, and where you're going in the future.
Ambition, I think, is your priority number one. Without ambition, you'll go nowhere. I think ambition drives the paranoia to try to drive better, and when I say paranoia, not sure it's, really focusing on competition. It's that strive, that's internal drive that you want to get better, you want to do better, you want to continue. There's external forces each and every day. Some are competition, some aren't. It's consumer changes, consumer shifts. You got government, regulatory. You have supply chain challenges. You have macroeconomical changes. You have, recession, non-recessions, pricing. You got a lot of different things to think about when you're running a business or thinking about go-to-market strategies and, human resource capabilities and investing in the future. Or maybe, you're not investing and you have to, make some cuts that are hard decisions as well. And how does that impact? What does that impact? And how's that going to affect the overall business as well? And most importantly, the morale of the teams, right? How do you keep teams motivated? You can't do it on your own. You got to be able to motivate your teams. And that's extremely critical. You can have, the best drive, the best strategy, but if you can't convince your team members to come along with you, you're not going to achieve anything.
When you're making those bets on the future of the company and evaluating where you could take the brand, how much of the conversation is about risk? How much of the conversation is about, if we do this, how will it affect brand perception and positioning versus what incremental value will it bring to the company?
I think that's an equal conversation. That's an equal weight. There's initiatives, there's opportunities, but you need to understand the risk factor. And I think, being a public company like Celsius, we have an even greater risk. We're really running, when you think about it, we run three businesses here at Celsius. You have an amazing energy drink, an amazing beverage that we're running, that we're activating and building upon. We're also a B2B sales and marketing organization that we need to, sell our B2B customers. And then we also run another business, which is a public company business, and is a whole other animal and different types of needs. And each of those three businesses have different risks associated with them. So when you think about risk, you really need to think about risk within those three elements on how each and every single one can be uniquely affected by that. So risk is definitely a priority within those discussions when you're thinking about opportunities and initiatives and paths forward.
At the end of the day, however, it really does come back to the consumer and how many consumers you can get to, as you mentioned earlier, pick that can off the shelf and buy it and then buy it again. And going again from 100 million in revenue to, well over $1 billion in revenue. Actually, can you share where you are in terms of revenue at this point?
Yeah, we just did $326 million in the second quarter of this year, 2023. And you are at over $1 billion run rate now in 52 weeks, according to IRI. So we are over $1 billion brand at retail, which is an amazing accomplishment. There's so many brands that come to market each year, as you know, and you report on them and work with a lot of founders and entrepreneurs. And, that's very difficult. And it's a rare that a brand is able to become a $1 billion brand at retail.
So again, getting more consumers interested, aware of, and buying Celsius is such an important part of the business. Over the past 3 years, how have you convinced new consumers to adopt the brand and replace it with others?
Yeah, I mean that's a big question. It's a whole chapter in
We got
itself in
plenty of
there.
time. I mean, we're digital. We're not
Yeah.
on film anymore. So.
Well, yeah, run out of film, right? Run out of tape here. But it's I think the most important component, and we talk about that with Kyle Watson. We spend a lot of time together, and it's authenticity. I think is extremely important with consumers today. You need to be authentic with your brand identity, and that's one thing we really work to be authentic within the communities that we target. And the other thing is, really we need to come out with great flavors, right? It doesn't matter what you have or a consumer products brand and company. And liquid to lips is so critical that a consumer has great experience with that. And without a great product, it's really difficult to convert consumers and get that secondary purchase. Getting trial is one thing, but getting continuity and getting loyalty and brand loyalty is a totally different animal. And that's extremely difficult to do. And I think the team's done a great job with that. And it comes down to the product. If you look at Celsius, we got great flavors. We think some of the best flavors in the energy category, most refreshing flavors. We just launched 11 line at Walmart that's been super successful. And, the way the product is resonating with a broad consumer set with healthier, better for you, brand positioning, the fitness lifestyle position has really captured an energy drink consumer that really wasn't an energy drink consumer before. I was just at an investor conference. I was talking with a lot of potential investors, and it was interesting to speak with a lot of people that said, I'm not an energy drink consumer, but I drink Celsius in the afternoon. I replaced it with my coffee. So we hear a lot. We hear that a lot about the brand is that it's inviting, it's differentiated in the category. But if you don't win with consumers, you don't have a business at all. That's extremely critical.
Certainly the flavor is important. Certainly the convenience of being able to grab a can, pop it open, and have that be your afternoon pick me up is important. But I do want to unpack authenticity for a sec. It is a buzzword. Everyone uses it. And it is, as you mentioned, such an important part of your business. But how do you define authenticity? How does Celsius define it as it relates to its consumers?
Yeah, I think when you look at authenticity, listen, we're all creatures of habit, right? Where we go to the same grocery store, the same gas station, the same gym. A lot of times you go to the same restaurant on a weekly or monthly basis. We really look at our consumers. We're really on a track, right? So you have to be able to get into someone's daily lifestyle. We need to become a daily routine. And that takes that's difficult to do. With the number of ads consumer sees, how distracted we are with our cell phones and ads in the car, radio. It's really about being able to connect with a consumer on an emotional level that you're part of a daily routine, daily lifestyle. And that's what we've been able to do here. The fitness component really helps us with that. Being a fitness lifestyle brand, born in gyms and Vitamin Shop and GNC, we have that kind of almost purpose in life. As being that pre-workout, and that's where our DNA, that's where we started. But then again, with our flavor profiles and expanded reach and distribution, we've been able to really position the brand as really a great, refreshing, functional energy drink for a broader consumer set. We're not as aggressive. If you go to like traditional energy, somewhat has an aggressive, tone or stance, and we've been really inviting on that. We've been able to get into those consumers' daily lives. And that's the authenticity. It needs to be authenticity to the consumer that you're targeting, and really be able to nicely fit into, a lot of marketers, they say day parts and usage occasion and all that, and that's part of it, right? And it's being able to find where you fit in that consumer's life. And I think once you figure that out, you can build marketing strategies, sales strategies around that. To build that authenticity that it fits like a glove, right? I mean, it fits perfectly within that person, that consumer's lifestyle.
I think another buzzword that we often hear, maybe this is more of a term, is better for you. And at BevNet Live in December, you had spoken about the fact that consumers generally want better for you ingredients, but at the end of the day, we can't sacrifice flavor and taste. And I think this has come up often, or more often than I have than I recall it ever coming up is, um, not sacrificing flavor and being able to feel comfortable using ingredients that had been um, that had a negative perception, like certain types of artificial sweeteners, are coming more into play than I think people had realized, and it's certainly more of a surprise to me than that I'm seeing more of these types of sweeteners incorporated into beverages. Um, you know, I guess what I'm trying to get to here is when you were thinking about formulation and thinking about what the customer wants, I think that's authenticity as well, right? I mean, knowing who your customer is and delivering on that value and that flavor that they're expecting is such an important part of meeting expectations.
You got to have an experience, right? A new product. I mean, consumers are already, they don't, you really think about it. Consumer doesn't need your product. I mean, there's so many products on the market today. Why does a consumer need your product? I think, you need to have that identified. And then if you don't have a good experience with the product, I mean, you're not going to get that trial and reorder that is so important. And you're not going to be included in their lifestyle. I mean, I go back to Expo West when I was there in the early days, and we used to be sampling product, and we got all our the flavors out, and we'd kind of like try to figure out the person walking up to the booth, kind of what flavor we're going to give them, and it was because certain flavors had really almost like a medicinal aftertaste to it. We spent a lot of time refining the flavors, but to where we are today. But in the early days, it was it was a challenge because of that, kind of medicinal flavor on the back. And that really only attracted to certain consumers that were really looking for the functional attributes of the brand that fit into their lifestyles versus maybe more of a mainstream consumer that likes the attributes, likes the functionality of the product, likes the features and benefits, but is not willing to sacrifice flavor. They're not going to, tolerate, an aftertaste or some type of medicinal flavor on the end. That's not the experience they want. And it's not what they want in their lifestyle or they want to consume on a daily basis. So I think that's the difference between like a functional, a functional product, that's specifically for that point of function. People will sacrifice the flavor. But if you're trying to be a daily lifestyle brand or daily usage, and expand to a much broader consumer base, more mainstream consumer, you got to land on the flavor, and consumers have to have that great experiential flavor. If you go back to Celsius, I've been here since 2012. You go to the early days, we had a really loyal consumer base. If you go back to 13, 14, 15, and 16, even 2019, when we talked, when we were doing 100 million in revenue, which was amazing achievement. We still today have loyal, but that loyal consumer base really didn't mind that medicinal flavor because it was used as a pre-workout, as a true functional beverage before their workout routines, before their fitness activity.
Well, in the natural channel, there's been that battle for a long time of, can it be functionally good for you or have the kind of functional ingredients that you desire and still taste bad? And I think, things are improving, but, Celsius at this point is not a natural channel brand. You may be sold in some natural retailers at this point, but I think the future of the brand is very much in conventional, in convenience. And I recall the last time we spoke, you had very little distribution in convenience, and that's changed pretty dramatically over the last 3 years as well. How have you navigated increased distribution in that channel, and how have you done it in a way that is again in line with your goals and priorities?
Yeah, I think if you go back even last year, we were about a 60% ACV in convenience, and we've been working on convenience. It's really the last frontier. That's not how we really built the brand, and we built the brand in fitness. We went to grocery, we went to Target, we went to mass. We went to drug, and really club, and then started to expand in fitness as really convenience as really the evolution has changed in energy as really prior, even, 2 years ago. I go back 2 years at NAX, which I know NAX is coming up now, really excited about it. But if you go back 2 years ago, Celsius and a lot, was and some of the other fitness, performance brands was really seen as a niche within the category. Really belonged, according to the buyers, in a subcategory, and maybe the gutter, the coolers, and those, and they weren't going to take much space. They weren't allocate much space to it. It was a niche. But now I think when as the evolution has evolved, especially in a post-COVID world, and when you look at fitness is such a lifestyle nowadays. If you look at clothing apparel, what's happened with athleisure wear, it's a multi-billion-dollar category. You look where the fitness, gyms and health clubs have expanded. You go to Soul Cycle and you ask like the CEO, does he run a gym? Or how does he think of his business? And, they think of their business as an entertainment company, not as a fitness location. So I think you've really seen fitness evolve. It's a lifestyle, and buyers and retailers, move with what consumers want. And that has allowed us to gain distribution and convenience. And partnering with 7-Eleven, we just partnered with Circle K. We launched a Cosmic Vibe. I have that flavor here. It's a sparkling fruit punch flavor, which is just out of this world. Great packaging. And we've been able to build great partnerships. We got a great key accounts team. And then the Pepsi partnership, which we're coming up on a 1-year anniversary, has allowed us now to be, almost run to about a 95% ACV. And hopefully you can find us in just about every convenience store in the country these days. If not, send me an email and we'll follow up. We got some work to do. There
you go. Listeners, if you don't find Celsius, or you can't find Celsius in your local convenience store, just email John.
Yeah, please do.
You mentioned the Pepsi partnership, and I definitely want to talk about that. It has been about a year since that was announced, a humongous deal, and a really remarkable one in so many ways. Congratulations again on it. When I think about companies that enter into a strategic partnership with, a conglomerate like a PepsiCo or a Coca-Cola, it feels like a time to take a victory lap, but it's definitely not. It's definitely a time to say, okay, now we have this great opportunity in front of us. How do we not screw it up in so many ways? And how do we take, take it to its fullest potential? So, we have seen a lot of times, brands enter a strategic partnership or, get involved with a conglomerate and not work out so well. I'm not going to mention any names. I think everyone knows what we're talking about. But, what did you see at the outset as being the most important parts of that relationship such that you could maintain it in a really positive and profitable way?
Yeah, I think, the Pepsi partnership has been a phenomenal transition for the company. And I think to your point, like, you say, yeah, I could do a victory lap when we got to that point. And, it's almost like you do like a half a lap and you're like, whoa, we got to like, there's a lot of work to do. Like it's now we got to perform. We got to transition distributors, transition distribution. We're going to have to bring on more staff. How are we going to support this transition? So there's a lot of boxes to check as you're going up, and then continue to evaluate and optimize. And the partnership has been phenomenal. And, when we were looking at it, it's really about, best in class execution. If you can't execute in trade, you're going to have a really difficult time to win in retail. Distribution is, so important. Consumers are one thing, but you can't get consumers if you don't have distribution and execution in retail. You got to win, as we call it, like on the dance floor in retail. That's very, very critical. And, when you look at the number of staffing of sales team members that Pepsi has, it's one of the world class. I mean, you look at Monster with Coke, and Red Bull's got an amazing sales organization that's out there. And, having like cohesive execution is really important as well. So our prior distribution kind of was very fragmented. We had, multiple over 300 different distributors that we were able to piece together to service some of these key accounts. And some accounts we didn't really even transfer over to DSD. Just we couldn't, we were missing some stores, and it's like a jigsaw puzzle trying to get these stores covered. And a lot of retailers won't let you go DSD if you don't have those stores covered. So tracking zip codes and everything else in between, just adds a ton of complexity. Also, if you're going to try to execute any retail marketing programs or distribution, that adds a whole other complexity as well within it that causes a challenge within the execution, which is so important. And when you look at Pepsi, you have really divisions, about 4 divisions you're working with, and then you have that national access that you have within programs and wiring. That's important. So as well as access to a key accounts team and a lot more efficiency. So we saw it as a great upside, but I think to your point, there's any decision that you make, you got to evaluate the risks. And, we were concerned because you do hear a lot of companies partnering with large multinational companies, and due to the complexities of their organizations, due to the their priorities and focus within their organizations, it's difficult to succeed. And I think the company has done a really great job, and the leadership team has done a great job navigating some of those challenges that you have. And so those are things that we looked at. It's gone great. We're coming up on our 1-year anniversary of Pepsi selling their first case of Celsius here. And we're excited for what's in store for 2024. And we look for further better wiring, better synergies as we're getting in the second year of this great partnership.
What happens when priorities aren't aligned? And I say this, and people might say, oh, well, you're talking about Celsius and PepsiCo. Well, I think I'm also talking about a brand and an investor, right? And I think this is something that's applicable to anyone listening right now. How do you solve those issues when you're not necessarily on the same page?
Yeah, and I mean, I think that goes from a brand to an investor, a brand to a distributor, brand, and management to other management teams. Like, you're going to always have challenges, internally. You got internal strategies that may be disagreements. And I think you got to, the most important is have an open mind, right? You need to learn, why do they have that priority? Win friends and influence others is extremely important as well, right? I mean, everyone should read that book. I think that's very important. You got to understand everyone's perspective. Everyone has a different perspective in life. And then you need to be able to digest that and, look at yourself in the mirror and make sure that you have the right strategy and perspective. I think always kind of second guessing yourself is important. And then if you still feel you have that right strategy or the right importance of prioritization that's needed, how do you win them over? You need to win them on your team and work through those challenges. I've had disagreements with investors. We work through those, and disagreements with employees as well, right? And sometimes you're wrong, sometimes you're right. And I'm sure if you both have the same passion, the same drive, you want the same outcome, there's multiple paths to get there, and you need to evaluate those accordingly and work through that.
This question is going to yield a situational answer, I'm sure, but how do you know in a conversation with a potential investor or with an investor or a distributor where there is a little bit of a disagreement, how do you know when to be humble and when to be headstrong?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it's your personal instinct, right? It's your interpersonal skills going into those meetings, when to hold and when to fold, right? I mean, that takes a unique individual, and it takes someone with the right understanding and philosophy to be able to do that in order to win. That's a poker game in itself. Some are great at it, some aren't great at it. And that comes down to every negotiation as well, right? There's when to play your cards, when to hold your cards. Don't lose the battle. Lose the battle and win the war, I think, is where you're trying to get to, right? I think that's important to have that perspective. You're not right all the time, and you're gonna be wrong. I mean, you got to learn from your mistakes, and you got to learn from your team's mistakes. You got to allow people to fail is important, right? But always have those backup plans. So if you can't convince that person, maybe you have to fold in order to, continue to move on with the brand, and you fold, but make sure you have a secondary play. So when it doesn't work out, you already have a secondary play. You already have a solution to fall back upon, and the play, you can't run your first play, get ready for your second play. And maybe you don't play the second play, but what the person said works out, and how do you double down on it?
Well, as we've talked about and as has been reported a number of times, Celsius has been wrong in a lot of ways. Not necessarily under your leadership, but the positioning, the flavors, the packaging. A lot of things have not gone right, but things have been going right in a lot of ways in the last few years, particularly when it comes to innovation. I feel like everything that Celsius has launched over the last few years has done really, really well. And it, again, is in line with what consumers are asking for. How do you do your research? How do you use data to influence and build an innovation strategy where you know, or at least you have a strong feeling that when this product hits the market, it's going to be a success?
I think that's a great question. That's a good question. When you talk about the brand history and the evolution, and you mentioned like failures. I don't think the company has ever failed. I think it's an evolution, right? I think every brand goes through an evolution. Yes, we've had packaging redesigns. Yes, we've changed flavors. Yes, we've rationalized the portfolio many times. That's what it's all about on building a brand, right? I mean, it's so rare to hit a grand slam on the first pitch, right? So I think for a lot of entrepreneurs out there, I mean, it's part of the journey. It's part of constantly trying to follow the consumer, trying to understand where you are within the brand cycle, understand who your buyers are, your consumers are, your investors are, and without the early positioning, I don't know if this brand would be here. It wouldn't be here. We started off as many of you may not know, we started off as a diet drink with burning calories and body fat. And, that's very unique and very unique for investors. They see it as a disruptive technology within food space. And we learned that consumers maybe don't see it as attractive. So the company has made, it evolved from that through different strategies along the way. So I think for entrepreneurs, it would be great if you hit a grand slam, but keep in mind, it's a lot of base hits, and sometimes you strike out and you need to get back in line to get back on the plate and continue to try it. But on the innovation side, I have a cross-functional team that meets every month. We talk about consumer trends. We get a lot of trends from a variety of different areas. Mintel, Numerator. We look at shopper data. We look at competition. We look at, most importantly, we look at and listen to our team members. A lot of, I think that's most important, that the team feels their ideas and this is their company. So as an example, we launched a fantasy vibe flavor, which was our first kind of dance into confectionery, which is a mandarin marshmallow flavor. Was designed by an employee that came up with, a unique flavor proposition. And then, we kicked that concept around about fantasy vibe and how the orange in the sunset could be a mandarin and the marshmallows could be roasted on a fire and everything. And that's how that whole concept came together with the team. And research behind that, not much there. It's more internal creation with the team, and it wasn't created by one person. It was created by a group. And then we tested it with the broader company. And then we tested it with some influencers and some brand ambassadors, and got some buy-in for some retailers, what they thought. And then we're off and running. And it's been, it hasn't been one of our best flavors on launches, but it's done well. It's sold more product than we did back in 19 on some of our best flavor launches when we launched then. And I think you learn from that. But consumer trends are important. We do use the data, but I think we also use the interpersonal minds and strategic thought process and critical thinking of our team members, which is important. We look at adjacent categories. How far could Celsius go? Constantly talking about that. Can Celsius go beyond energy? Could we one day be a functional seltzer or an isotonic, or is there a lower caffeinated product that's warranted? And I think that's important to have, always look beyond where the current portfolio is, but most importantly, always stay disciplined and focused as well. And timing and sequencing in life is so important. Can Celsius one day be like Gatorade, which is a global iconic brand? It's in multiple functions, apparel and equipment. And, it's just, it's fascinating to have those aspirations. I think that's important to drive that through the company.
A lot of the innovation has been about introducing new flavors, introducing limited time offerings. There's also innovation that comes with pack size, right? And, competing brands typically, or a lot of them do have different sizes of cans. How does that kind of thinking go into, or how does that part of the business, try to get 3, 2, how does pack size factor into your innovation strategy?
Well, I think pack size is important, especially in the category. I mean, you look at the variety of different cans from 16 ounce and 12 ounce to 8.5, and those in between. Then you look at 4 packs and 8 packs and 6 packs, variety packs, and there's so many different pack sizes. One thing during COVID, multi-packs has been, a great addition to the company. We did a lot of variety packs. Those have worked well in large format. Pack size, it has to be part of your mix, especially as build a loyal consumer. One thing that we did originally, when you go back to the beginning of the company, originally a lot of their sales when I started in 2012 was in 4 packs. So it was important to change the portfolio into singles, and to be able to get trial. Someone to try your product for $2, $3 is much easier than someone paying $8 or $9 for a 4 pack and getting close to that $10 range. So we went to a single strategy until we could build trial and awareness and loyalty. And, now we're looking at, building larger pack sizes. So looking at, we built upon our 4 packs. We do have some great variety packs that are working these days. And, I think be careful on thinking about, pack size too early in the brand life cycle, because it could hinder some of your consumers to physically try your product. So I think that's important. And that was a learning that I think if you go through the brand life cycle and history, maybe in the early days, we had the wrong pack size strategy going to market.
I imagine it's pretty easy for you to get multi-packs delivered to your house, John. I imagine a refrigerator downstairs or in the garage or something is just completely full of Celsius. Maybe I'm completely off here. But when I do think about, you as, someone who's running a multi-billion-dollar company, and then also you who is, trying to raise a family as well, I think, that personal work relationship is something that everyone feels and is affected by. Given where you are today with Celsius and given your role, how do you think about aligning your personal goals for yourself and for your family with that of the company?
I mean, I think that's important. You got to have a family life. You have to be able to unwind and disconnect. We work really hard at Celsius, just like everyone works really hard. Every entrepreneur works really hard, and you got to be able to disconnect. I think, like on Sundays, I put my phone on silent, and just spend time with the family. Once in a while, we'll have a call if it's a board meeting or something along those lines, or something very important. But I think it's important that you shut down and, have time with your loved ones, and you got to have a work-life balance. If your home life is unbalanced, your work life is going to be really challenging. So I think that's important to have a balance in life. And, it's family is part of everything. And it's part of me. It's part of how, our team members, everyone knows their family is important, and you got to take care of your family first.
Does it ever come up where you're thinking about potentially the future and saying, hey, I'm looking forward to the days where I can, be traveling or not have to worry about flying coach and things like that. And I'm sure that, that I would think that would come up, but how do you stay grounded?
I don't know. I take pride in that. It's that, I don't know. I don't think that way. I take pride in that. It's in my DNA, and it's who I am, and I don't know. It's the way you're wired.
Yeah. Well, that's a great answer. And it definitely feels like that because, John, every time I've spoken with you, you're just a very easy person to speak with. You're always even keeled. 99% of the time you have a smile on your face, unless maybe you had a bad board meeting, which I don't think those happen very often.
You've been pretty good lately.
But even just now, I mean, I'm taking so much pleasure and really learning so much from you, even someone, who's not a beverage operator, who's not a brand entrepreneur. And it's been fantastic. I thank you so much for taking this time again with me and for sharing, all the amazing things that you're doing with Celsius with our audience.
Thanks for having us. Appreciate it. It's an honor to be on. And listen, you guys are critical to the consumer products industry and beverages. And I love listening to the videos and reading and what you guys do for the industry. Thank you.
Appreciate you saying that. Good luck with everything going forward. And the next time you're in Boston, John, come on, you got to come to the office. We got to have you over here. We'll get you. We could do a live version of this, in person, as it were.
Let's do it.